April 20th, 2015. You're looking at live images from CERN as of 12 noon. Notice your beam 2 in the red is up. It's about to drop right there. It's been doing that all day. Beam 1 in blue has been low the entire day. Your black line is the beam energy. You can see that's very small. That will rise as we see these two beams energize and get closer. Notice here in the comments, beam is back. B1 is investigating an MKI issue. Beam 2, there's an aperture scan in 15R8. Now, what they're talking about in the MKI is it is a booster section or a kicker section after it comes out of the main injectors. To the right of this chart, we just left LINAC 2 that was giving them the problems last night. Remember, that's where they first start the injection process. But the MKI kicker section not only re-accelerates, but it starts to curve the beam into the main tunnels. This morning to the right and top, you see where it says MSI septa. They were having problems there this morning. That is a curving magnet system. It looks like they've got that worked out. Now they're dealing with the kicker system, which comes in past that curve. It recurves after that into the main tunnel. Now if you look at the entire setup, your injection points are down at the bottom of the 17-mile coil. Atlas is there also, but you have T1 and T2. These are your injection points. To the right is beam 2. To the left is beam 1. Beam 1 is blue, 2 is red, as you see these charts. Now, if you look at Atlas, remember they've been dealing with the magnets on that. We'll look at this. On the other end, at the top of the 17-mile curve at CMS, this is where they dump the beams, and they've been having to do that quite a bit lately. Notice these blocks. And just before it crosses CMS into where one of the points to where they could collide these beams, they can dump them. Now, if you took, a lot of people say it's not very much energy involved, then why does it take 1,000 tons of concrete shielding in order to try and stop this? Think about that. And they start spiraling that beam down into a smaller and smaller circle in order to slam it into that beam dump. So we're dealing with a lot of power. So when you say, or you see me say beam dumped, or you see the chart saying it, they've had to come out of that curve very quickly right here, and that's what we're looking at. See that curve? But if you go straight on the schematic, you'll see the dump sections at the end in the square boxes with the gray sections. And you go through your kickers, and there's your dump to the left for beam 1, dump to the right for beam 2. You'll see that a lot. Notice also at the bottom you can see how that curves out. This is interesting because the solenoid in Alice was up at reading at 30,000 plus last night. Now it is off and reading at 24.86, much lower. It's a much tighter beam, and it continues to drop. The solenoid is a kicker magnet system, an acceleration point where they change the polarity very fast of the magnets, and one side pulls the beam, the other pushes it. It happens in microseconds. That is off. Atlas solenoid beam is also elevated, but the LINAC, and this was the problem last night, has status OK on all the systems. See that? So again, we're past the injection point, past the MSI point of the curving magnets this morning. Now they're dealing again with the MKI kickers. Notice here, beam 1 is armed, beam 2 is dumped. That can change in seconds. We'll watch it. Notice below this, as we go through the numbers, you've got two screens. The beams are not aligned for collision. One is off to the right, one is to the left. Look at this live. It just rearmed beam 2. Now look at the top. We have both beam 1 and beam 2 ready to go. Also want to go through a solar update and an earthquake update before we finish this video. But again, this information changes very rapidly on this live CERN site. This is the latest from the USGS. Notice the Quakes 6.5 at the top. Comes down to 6.2, 5.2, 6.4. Guys, these are impulse quakes from the flashes of the flares. This coronal mass ejection has not arrived yet. I'll show you this on the proton charts from ACE. Also notice the fault zone where these quakes are located. The small island that they're offshore on is where Taipei City is. You go up to Japan, and that fault goes right through the center of the island. That is south of the Fukushima plants. It's not a good earthquake fault line for this type of activity because the plants at Fukushima are in such bad shape. It's very critical that it remains stable, and even at that, they do not know what they're going to be able to do with these melted fuel rods. Again, here's a different map showing just south and east of Taipei City off of Tainan City, guys. You see that? No tsunami warnings were issued. It's going to take a somewhat stronger quake, and all of them were not that deep. Notice around 38K as far as kilometers in depth. The shallower the quake, a lot of times that will determine the strength of the tsunami. And usually it will take one a little more powerful than that. Now, looking at the CME tracker from the video last night, this is the second impact event from that CME. As it crosses this at 1400 hours tomorrow, back about 6 hours off of that, so you're looking at 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. tomorrow on the East Coast in the USA. That would be the predicted arrival time. Now, the other tracker is showing two backside CMEs that have happened since that one. It doesn't show the one coming forward towards Earth. Earth is the yellow dot. These are going back, crossing Venus and the stereo satellites, and eventually Mars, which is in the red dot. So the reason I showed you that is because it looks like we're going to have continued energetic sunspots coming around the sun for the next several weeks. Right now, the solar surface has about 7 different sunspot sections on it. You've got 3 or 4 filaments that we need to watch in these darker lines. And let's take a look at the ACE satellites. You can see where the earthquakes occurred last night and then again this morning. These are when the energetic protons that were in the coronal mass ejection and the solar flares crossed the ACE satellite. Now, it has not picked up the CME. We do see a slight increase in proton density and radial wind speed in the red. It's up to about 425 kilometers per second. But we'll watch the ACE satellites through the afternoon and the evening to see if this starts to rise suddenly. That will be an indicator of the arrival of the coronal mass ejection. Remember, the models give a note at the bottom that says that the projection could be a plus or minus 7 hours, an error there either way. They're pretty close most of the time. We'll check it out, guys. It's a heads up. Be safe.